Hello and welcome to this virtual roundtable discussion from Foodservice Consultants Society International in partnership with Atlas Metal. My name is Tina Nielsen. I'm from Progressive Content in London and I'm the editor of FCSI's Foodservice Consultant magazine. I'm joined by four hugely experienced food service professionals for this discussion about educational food service and how to hit that sweet spot between functionality and visual appeal in operations.
I'm Amy Hegarty. I'm a principal at Foodservice Consultant Studio in Richmond, Virginia. Been with the company since 2007. While we touch on lots of different kitchen design, our specialty is K through 12.
I'm Melissa Moore, principal of Food Service Design Professionals. I've been with the company for 20 years. The market sectors we work in include K-12, higher ed, B&I, government, C-stores, hospitals, and others.
Hi, I'm Jessica Meade. I am VP of Sales and Marketing at Atlas Metal Industries. We are a food service equipment manufacturer that specializes in serving lines and custom manufactured equipment. We serve many food service education partners.
My name is Dale. I'm the program coordinator for the elementary schools here at Rochester, Minnesota. We have roughly 17,000 students across 25 sites, and I've been with the district since 2013.
So if we perhaps can start off talking a little bit about just the dominant trends in educational food service at the moment. How do you see it, Amy?
Well, some of the trends that we're seeing are serve healthy food options and lots of choices. It's no longer that you have one entree that you're serving that day. You have many choices for the students, lots of different types of menus, allergen concerns, international foods, vegetarian, different types of food items all at once, which makes serving sometimes a challenge to display all those properly so that they can choose from all the different menus. So that's certainly a trend that we're seeing. Grab and go, which I know we'll touch on as we talk about this topic. Grab and go is very prevalent. Packaged foods, we're seeing a lot more of that. And that became a necessary item during COVID, of course, but grab and go is here to stay, I think.
I agree. Some of the main trends that we see today are more grab and go, and we see a lot of healthy vending options, additional product resources having to be found, and the desire for more smart kitchens, pieces of equipment that can talk to the manager and alert them of temperature variances and things like that.
Dale, would you agree with those? I mean, you're at the heart of it.
I would agree that their options is a huge area. Having to appeal to students to keep them on site, especially at the high school level. We are seeing a push as well to have more international and ethnic flavors that represent the community while still maintaining, some of those regulations from nutrition, but still having it be appealing to others. I'm also seeing that the grab and go trend will always stay, but also the lunchtime is being shortened at many schools because of behavior issues. So in order to get 300 to 500 students through in 30 minutes is very challenging. So you need to be able to have different outlets for those students.
How much were these trends already happening before COVID? Have they been accelerated by COVID or?
I believe they were accelerated a little bit because I think operations directors had to look at different models, different delivery models for their food, as well as during the beginning of COVID, there was some discussion about sanitation and having students serve themselves on a line. So there was those aspects as well that kind of pushed the grab and go a little bit more.
And Jessica, from the manufacturer's point of view, how do these trends, so we're talking about the options, different options in food, the grab and go, and the certain level of flexibility, how does that impact on you as the manufacturer?
We have to constantly be thinking about flexibility and efficiency and having equipment that can flex to changing menus, changing dining layouts. whether that's a piece of equipment that can be run cold in the morning and then hot for lunch service, all in one. We're constantly trying to think of how we can be as flexible as possible within our equipment.
Or how has it impacted on the way you operate when you work with clients? Amy, if you want to go first.
We always ask a lot of questions up front to find out how they want to serve, how many students they're serving, and designing their serving lines is a key part of that. You know, what happens in the kitchen is separate, but still important. But the front-facing area that the students use, that's critical. As Dale said, timing is everything, and K through 12, especially, they have a very limited time of how they go through the line and how much time they have to eat. So we ask how many students are eating, and we do the math and do the formula to figure out how many serving lines. And if we know that they want to do a lot of grab and go, that's different equipment. If they want meals or snacks later in the day, is there a portable piece of equipment that can serve second breakfast or snacks after school for the sports teams? So it's all about the questions that we ask and the equipment that we specify and design into the kitchen. And we try to be very flexible, like was mentioned already. We don't want to tie anyone into one way of doing things for forever, because schools don't renovate very often. So we want to give them flexible equipment whenever possible. How long do you think the kitchen's going to last? It depends on the school system, but some of them, we go into kitchens that are, 50 years old that haven't been touched much. So replace things one at a time, pieces of equipment one at a time if they need to, of course, but they don't renovate very often. College and university, that's separate, that's different. They renovate more often, but K through 12, not so much.
And Melissa, would you agree that flexibility is one of the key areas that one of the key boxes that need to be ticked when you work with a client?
Yeah, I think as consultants, we need to design the spaces not only for functionality and flexibility, but also for keeping up staff morale. Right now, one of the major problems is labor shortages that some of these operators are facing. So keeping the staff happy, keeping, the spaces functional, ergonomic, I think helps the entire design and helps the process.
Is there a lot of work to be done in that area?
Absolutely. I think that before, you design a functional space and make sure that the flow is proper and make sure that, staff don't cross each other. But now we're thinking more, making sure those staff members are happy, making sure that they're well taken care of, they're well trained, they're trained on sanitation, and helping those operators make sure that they kind of understand that with the changing world today and everything that's going on, there's more considerations that have to be brought into that design and the whole process. So
we're talking today about this, hitting that balance between functionality and something that's appealing for the students to be in. And now, obviously, as Melissa said, the staff as well. How much is that on your mind when your team designs new equipment?
It's one of the first things that we discuss is obviously what type of food are you wanting to serve and what type of order. But then in terms of making it welcoming, do you want graphics? What colors are you looking at? Are you matching current equipment that's already there, or are we starting from scratch? It's definitely top of mind for us when we begin the, design part of the job.
Mm-hmm. So are there any particular examples you can give of recent innovations that have hit that balance?
Like I touched on earlier, having a food well be able to run cold and then hot. So if you're in a limited area, that you have essentially a 2 functioning drop-in or a serving line counter.
We see those often. We do a lot of the hot cold wells, and something else we're doing more of are adjustable food shields. So if they may want to do self-serve and they think they're going to do self-serve forever until a virus hits, and then they can't. The students are finally coming back, but maybe they're not ready to do self-serve. They can shut that food shield down and they can serve the food to the students safely. So we're seeing a lot more of those. And food shields are not as clunky as they used to be. They're more streamlined, and they really spotlight the food, which is the whole point. You want to see the food. No offense to Atlas or any of the other counter manufacturers. that's not why we're there. We're there to serve food. And we want nice looking counters, don't get me wrong, but especially the food shields tend to get in the way
Yeah.
sometimes.
We've had to, or we didn't have to, but we pivoted to more glass, way less hardware. So it showcases the food much better.
And Dale, so from your point of view as the operator, I mean, how much do you think of the visual appeal? Now, Jessica is talking about graphics and patterns and colors, and how much is that on your mind when you think about your food service operations?
Quite a bit. I'm involved directly with the remodels at our elementary sites, and I've had to remodel a kitchen every summer, sometimes two. Most of the time, our lifespan of the kitchens, I'm thinking between 20 and 30 years. And you don't know what the menu is going to be like 20 years from now. So I think that's where the flexibility comes into play, where when I'm designing, the serving counter, I look at different wells. I look at flat space to be able to showcase different items. We look at whether base slides need to be on the hot well. We put a little 6x6 kind of sneeze guard on our hot wells. We've learned over the years some of the little tips and tricks that really help the line move quickly, but also provide flexibility for the changing and evolving menus at different levels. Some of the other flexibility items that we've looked at is, even using single section freezers and coolers. So you can kind of plug and play. When one goes down, you're able to swap those easily. Pass through units. We're looking at glass on our warmers versus solid doors. There's just a number of ways to provide kind of a visual appeal, but also we want a kitchen that looks like a commercial restaurant kitchen and not like a church basement kitchen or something that looks outdated. And I think that alone really has a lot of appeal to students. We're even putting subway tile in our kitchens in different patterns and really keeping a clean look. So when we choose laminate for our serving units, we try to make sure that it follows the theme of the school, but also provides flexibility. So if we need to move those units to a different school, it matches. So that's how we look at it as a whole.
So what Melissa was saying earlier about it, making sure that it works for staff, I mean, I think that's a really interesting point because obviously there is a shortage of staff in food service generally. How do you see that, Dale?
There is a major shortage in food service, I think in hospitality in general. I've been in the hospitality industry for many years now, and this is the worst that I have seen it. I think a lot of folks, this was their opportunity to move on to something else because the market had many options for folks in hospitality that gave a better quality of life. But in K-12s, in particular, we're roughly 30 to 40 full-time equivalents down over the 1920 school year. And with the waivers not being extended by USDA for the following school year, that is going to be probably the most difficult area to bounce back from. We do have to bring back the point of sale systems. And of course, that is where we were able to save most of the staff as we went into COVID, as we moved away from that. I think that'll always be a challenge.
Melissa, in terms of just general changes over the last, say, decade, 10 to 15 years, how much have you seen food service in educational establishments changing? How much have the priorities changed?
I think that so much has changed in the last 10 to 15 years, especially for educational food service, but really in the last 3 more than any other, obviously. I think the combination of COVID and the supply chain issues changed everything for all of us. We don't think the same way or design the same way we used to. Our projects are being pushed, equipment is slow to come in, long lead times, inflation. It's like 5 things coming to a head, causing a major problem. And sometimes I think that all of us, operators, consultants, manufacturers, we all work together right now, more so than in any other time I've ever seen it personally, just brainstorming and trying to make sure that the end users are happy, satisfied, functional, flexible. It's a challenge. Everything is a challenge right now.
It's interesting you say about it really bringing the different parts of the industry together, because the supply chain issue really does affect everybody.
Everybody.
Mm. How do you see that, Jessica? I mean, has that been a major issue?
It has, and it feels like it's different every day what we can and cannot get. It's incredibly frustrating. We have been able to maintain our lead times right now, but we know that there is a shortage, particularly in condensing units. Anything with refrigeration is becoming really difficult to source the supplies needed.
And Amy, if you were to say about any changes in the last 10 to 15 years or three,
Right.
What would you highlight?
Many of the things that have already been mentioned, but 10 or 15 years ago, a straight line, standard cafeteria line was what we saw primarily. But now we're looking at more food court style, scatter systems, featured food areas, a big pizza oven or a rotisserie or a wok station. Perhaps even at the high school level might do some of that. Just to really feature the international foods and the different types of menus that they can have without being tied into one thing, because there's lots of different things you can do in a pizza oven, not just pizza. But yeah, just getting away from the standard go in one door, come out the other type of serving line, which are still very, very common in elementary, of course. But when you get to the high school level and certainly college and university, it's much more interesting. And the finishes and the colors are so key. I'm so glad, Dale, that you mentioned that you're really looking at that, because for a couple of years, all I saw were gray serving lines, gray serving areas. Like, stainless steel's already gray, people. Please don't give me any more gray walls. This is an elementary school. Let's have some fun with the colors. So I think it's coming around again that we're doing more of that. But for a while, you saw a lot of bland environments there. And like, again, let's inspire the students. Let's form an identity for this serving area. And I've seen some architects even give me some color in the kitchen, which I'm thrilled about. So, but that's a change that I hope continues with the decor and the signage and the fun environment that we can really create, especially for K through 12.
Dale, do you think that there is just an expectation among students and I guess and their parents as well now that they're getting those options, that it's going to be a nice environment, that they expect something more like if they go out to eat outside the school environment?
I think there is. I think students' tastes have evolved quite a bit. I think you have different differences between some other folks' experience. In Rochester, we do have a kind of a varied population because of the Mayo Clinic here. So I think you find that some people's experiences in other countries and other states, they have brought that with them and possibly demand some of those options. Also, just even the commercial environment and the options that secondary students have has changed greatly in most cities. And I think that needs to be reflected in the school in order to retain students to have a kind of a nutritious meal during the school day.
So I guess similarly, there's an expectation that the children are going to be served food that is actually good for them. I said that must be another of the changes, that there's more expectations on the actual on what the food does to the children. There
is. It's really a balance between nutritious food and also it needs to be appealing. And I think especially at the elementary level, for sure, just because we can't serve any dish to elementary school students and they're going to consume it. Many times when we're trying a new menu item, in order to entice students to try it, we sometimes throw on a little treat, sorbet or a cookie or something similar, because it is difficult for them to break that barrier if they haven't had that exposure before in their home. So, I think at all levels it needs to be appealing, but you have to strike that balance for sure.
And Jessica, is that something that you're mindful of, the fact that the end customer actually really expects something at a slightly higher level, a bit more refined now, when you supply the equipment?
Definitely, like Amy said, more so at the high school, the secondary level, we're seeing way more high-end things than I ever saw at high school. A lot more food court style. We're seeing a lot more solid surface, people wanting to use corian or Caesar stone. At the K through, I'd say 8 level, we're still trying to be mindful of who we're serving. Whether that be our serving lines go down to 30 inches for the little ones, or perhaps we keep it at a standard 35, but we lower the tray slides so the kids aren't, trying to put the tray above their heads. It's definitely very important.
So, Melissa, in terms of the whole issue of grab and go, and I guess, is there any pre-ordering in these schools?
In the higher education pre-ordering, but we're not seeing any of that in the K-12.
Yeah.
And I think that
grab and go.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of these trends kind of scattered throughout the markets, the different sectors. And I think that all of these different trends change the way we design in most instances. Obviously in the elementary, you don't see some of these innovative trends that we're talking about, but middle schools and high schools, definitely more grab and go and vending like we talked about. Yeah. I think in higher education, you are seeing more pre-ordering and pickup. And I think that the basis for that, if we're designing a kitchen, we just need to make sure that the process you're utilizing right now today, is that going to work 10 years from now with this design when things change, when the world changes again? What's the next leap? I don't know what that is, but, it's difficult none of us have a crystal ball, but we just have to work closely with the operators and make sure, whatever process is now, the kitchen is flexible enough to sustain the next process.
Yeah, I guess expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We spoke a little bit at the start about self-serve. Is that something that is going to be widespread again, or is it already widespread again?
We're slowly moving back to self-serve already. I think it helps with the students and making their selections and actually consuming what they are taking if they have the ability to decline some items. Basically, offer versus serve is what we call it in the industry. So, and I think that we really got past that point of thinking that COVID was spread through surface contact. And really the health department and the industry was on board with moving back to self-service.
We figured it would come back because it's an efficient way to get the students through the line quickly. And like Dale said, they can choose what they want to take. We see it in elementary schools even, we're really not an advocate of that in general terms, but it's up to the district. If that works for them, then that, we'll certainly design it for that. But self-service come back, and it's here to stay. If that's what they want, that's what works for them.
That's been an answer to some of the labor shortages as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a server standing there to put things on a tray if the students are doing that themselves.
Yeah. And Jessica, does that affect in any way? Have you had to make any changes to any self-serve?
Honestly, in the beginning, when, March 2020, it was really scary that we didn't know if these were spreading and everyone's saying the serving line's going away, but it really hadn't. Everything, we're running pretty much the same. I know we touched on making food guards self-adjustable. That I think has been the biggest thing that changed that I've seen, is that those are all specified a lot more now than before. But from a serving line, no, we're chugging along, and the demand is there. Now we just got to get the supply.
I'd like to talk a little bit about sustainability, just because it's part of any food service project. Is it something that is now baked into a project from the off, or is it something that still needs to be talked about?
I think society as a whole is more environmentally conscious, and sustainability should be considered with every project. There are projects that have more strict requirements, but we try to incorporate sustainability into most of the projects or all projects. And really, it's up to the district. I think that food service operators are very educated on environmental and sustainability issues and concerns. And they obviously, that's one of their goals, is to make sure their kitchen does meet that level. So I think that, again, it is district by district, but most designs try to keep that into consideration.
Dale, is it top of mind for you, the sustainability element?
It's always a piece. We do look at the large equipment and what sort of power we'll use on those, or what sort of sustainable features that they have. The dish machine, with the gallons per cycle, the wastewater. We're looking at combi ovens and those type of large purchases that are really efficient. And we also get utility rebates as well.
Well, certainly in the water usage, as Dale just mentioned, energy efficiency, Energy Star, and most of that, like Melissa said, it's just a natural thing now. It's nothing we have to hunt for the specific equipment. Every manufacturer is on board with saving energy and water, and so we just naturally select those. We're seeing fewer LEED projects, or ones that are actually certified, but that doesn't mean that the sustainability focus has gone away. And there's different criteria now and different things, and the owners are more educated on that and more aware of all that. And it's just a natural part of the design process now. It's nothing as special as it once was.
Just staying with you, Amy, how much education do you have to provide to clients in the sustainability area?
Not as much. They trust that we will select the right equipment for them. Most people are aware, LEED and sustainability practices, and looking for those things now. So we don't have to talk about it as much. Again, it's just a natural part of what we do.
Yes, I completely agree. And, before, when we were going for a LEED project for the LEED certification, the water use reduction was always the really difficult one. So it's always been a little bit of a struggle in that respect. But again, it's all part of it now. And we all kind of just lean towards that. All the equipment is Energy Star where it can be. And not all projects are LEED certified. So I think we all kind of lean more towards sustainable designs as a standard now.
Jessica, I imagine from the manufacturing point of view, sustainability is a huge part of your work.
It is. It's a little bit more difficult in my specific type of equipment because we're open. It's much easier to have sustainability when you have a door that closes to a refrigerator or something like that. But we do try to do our best. We use more insulation so we can use lower wattages. We do whatever we can to make our equipment as sustainable as possible.
So if we look at education and food service today, as opposed to what it was like before the pandemic, does it look very, very different?
I think COVID definitely impacted how we think and our designs. There's so many things that were affected by COVID. I keep saying COVID, but that's what we're living in. Mm-hmm. And other events that happened around the world at the same time. The repercussions were far and wide, some of which we did not see immediately, and we're just seeing things today. So we're all still learning together, and trying to push through together. And I think that brainstorming and talking to other people about these issues is extremely helpful. We're all still learning how to navigate through this together.
Things have gone back to normal pretty much. Food safety was always a big deal in kitchens anyway. So they knew how to handle things right and not come to work when they were sick and all of that. So especially in K through 12, they want to take care of their students. And when they were serving food in the classroom, they dealt with that. They figured out how to do that. So if anything, it's made them think about things in different ways, different service styles, and they adapted very, very quickly. K through 12, they're very self-sufficient. Their goal is to feed those students, no matter where those students are. They delivered food in bus loops. They delivered food, in neighborhoods or out the back of the kitchen door, or whatever, just to be able to serve the food to the community. at large. So it's important for us to be able to provide them kitchens in the future that are very adaptable, have multifunctional equipment, fewer steps and efficient spaces so that they can do things with fewer people when and if they have to, because that's going to be a problem for a while.
We're still dealing with effects from 2020. And I think that's a lot of the supply chain is just an ongoing part of the job. I mean, the vendor outs and paper products, it just shows you how global the world is. And how one kind of blip in one area can affect everyone. I think it's as I go forward, I need to think about things differently. I mean, we're delivering meals to rooms. We're still offering meal kits to online students, which the district developed. So, it really comes down to how can you run the operation, knowing that something could happen in the future, with less staff, with less supplies, and really what can you do to mitigate that, whether it's buy product in bulk, warehouse some product, look to other vendors for some items that you may not have used in the past. So there's just so many aspects that you have to be able to change and pivot very quickly. And I think K-12 did that very well. And it's neat to see, but also we have to be prepared for it when it happens again, essentially. But I will say these last few years have been challenging. I can barely remember exactly all the changes that we had to go through each month. We were changing our staffing patterns regularly, and adapting the service style. And I think even next fall, as we head into the school year, we'll move back hopefully to more of a normal service style. But there still be challenges with timing, as I brought up earlier, and getting students through efficiently with limited staff.
Melissa, I know you said at the start of the conversation that it's difficult. None of us have a crystal ball. How do you see things developing down the track? Where's the market segment heading?
I see educational food service heading towards more automated technology, and I don't mean robotics and things like that, not way out there, but there's no replacement for the human aspect. But these last couple of years have made us take another look at how to minimize and streamline the labor efforts. So whether that's smart equipment, smart technology on serving counters, like I said earlier, that alert the management staff of temperature has dropped here where it shouldn't be, the danger zone, serving counters that can talk to different pieces of equipment, or equipment that can send a message to the staff, letting them know, okay, ready to operate. I think that that's a big thing that's going to happen down the road, and technology is advancing so fast right now. There's no telling what these manufacturers are going to come up with.
No. I mean, does that align with where you are, Jessica?
For sure. Our R&D is constantly looking at new types of thermostats, anything digital. We're constantly pulling in, working in on our equipment, seeing how it works. R&D is always looking for the next thing for this industry.
The awareness of different serving methods and the ability to serve in different ways. And they figured it out quickly before, but hopefully we can play as designers a more integral role of helping them design a kitchen or renovate their current kitchens to accommodate those needs. If they're serving from carts, where are they storing their carts after they've served? Where do they plug them in to keep them hot, or where do they clean them? Those are elements that they may have adopted, but they're sitting out in the hallway because there's no place to put them. But in the future, you would integrate that. Same with the pickup areas. If they're really doing grab and go or pickup, how is that happening and where is that happening? Because it was just kind of put into the mix when they needed it to be. But in the future, you really want to designate a spot for that so it works really well for them and really smoothly. And with all these disposables and all these grab and go and all this packaging, what do we do with all that? And hopefully in the future, there's less packaging on all this grab and go, or recyclable, compostable, and the school systems can afford to have recycling programs and compostable programs, and that it works for them. Because that's the thing, you can give them all this compostable in the world, but if that jurisdiction isn't able to have that program, it's not doing them any good. So with all this convenience and grab and go and quick service comes another challenge that we're going to have to deal with, and that's not going away.
I'm excited to try the trends that I hear that R&D is working on. I mean, we're a progressive district in the sense that we're willing to try new technology. I've already seen, things having touch screens and being Wi-Fi enabled. Being able to program your combi oven to start overnight to cook a roast, those type of things. What I've also found though is it needs to be easy enough that the staff is willing to use that technology, because we have incorporated some higher end items into our designs, and yet they may not get used as they're intended. I'm big on food safety as well, and I think any sort of temp logging or tracking device is very, very good, and it's helped save probably thousands of dollars, especially in our refrigeration equipment. We don't store food on our serving lines, but if some of them have under counter cooling as well. So where the industry is going, I think we start to see the trends in retail and commercial establishments, and those kind of filter into the schools. I know it's come up about university dining facilities, but you see the flat top grills, the Mongolian grills. You see a lot of different features and more exhibition cooking again. That I think you'll start to see some of that, I think, in the high school level and K-12 going forward. People want to see their food being made in front of them, that it's fresh, and that we're incorporating domestic vegetables into our dishes. I also think automation will be there to some extent. Especially, we've even been looking into different point of sale methods.
Well, all very excellent points. It seems to me that there's no rest for the wicked in this sector. There's a lot of changes constantly, but I'd say flexibility and working together seems to be the key things to look out for now, to really hold on to. But Amy, Melissa, Jessica, and Dale, thank you so much for joining us for this roundtable discussion about food service and educational establishments. And thanks to Atlas Metal for supporting the discussion. I appreciate your time.